Hello, hello. Let me know in the chat if you can see me, if you can hear me, just to confirm. And again, let me know where you are joining from today. I'm currently in South Bend, Indiana, and it is a beautiful fall day outside. All of the trees look so nice and beautiful. Hello, welcome everyone. Okay, there's Tiago. Hi, Tiago. Welcome, welcome. Okay, I'm going to give everyone just a minute to move on over to this link. Today is my first time using StreamYard. I don't know if anyone has used it before. So yeah, just a little startup pains. And just for everyone who has asked, the recording of this live stream will be available later today. I will be posting it on LinkedIn and sending it out to anyone who has signed up to receive it. Okay, just a couple more minutes. Welcome, everyone. Okay, we have people from Spain, from Brazil, from Argentina, from Uzbekistan. Wow, from Amsterdam. Oh, Alex, hello. Welcome. I'm seeing some familiar names here, and it brings me so much joy. Okay, so I know we are a few minutes after 10, so I'm going to get right into it. So welcome. If you are joining today, it is because you are interested in improving your English for the sake of job interviews. So I want to welcome everyone and say that I'm just really proud of you for taking the first step in improving and oh, there we go. Okay, welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so let's see. This webinar is for anyone who is on the job hunt right now. If you are communicating to struggle, or if you're struggling to communicate, like I am right now, your skills, your experience, your value to a potential employer. Hopefully, this webinar will give you some concrete tips that you can use to get your English communication up to that next level. So if you're just joining us, welcome again. Please let me know where you're joining us from in the chat. So far, we have people from South America, from Europe, all over. Great, great, great. Okay, so the question today is, how exactly can you get your English interview ready? So today we're going to talk about a couple of ways that you can do that. The first way is to pinpoint your language friction. Find the gaps in what you're able to say and what you're not able to say, and remedy those gaps one by one. The second thing that you can do is to build a narrative about yourself, and we're going to talk about some ways that you can structure your story about yourself, your professional story, and convey that to interviewers. And finally, we're going to talk about how you can deliver confidently in the moment when you're stressed out, when you're anxious, when you're terrified about how this could impact your future. How do you stay calm in those moments and speak with confidence? So in the chat, I want you to let me know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident were you in your previous interview, your most recent interview? And I have someone asking about subtitles. The subtitles will be available after the stream has ended and I have the recording released. So I'm so sorry about that. I will try to speak slowly and clearly so that everyone can understand during the live stream, and I will be adding those subtitles later today. So let me know in the chat. We have a 7. 7 is actually pretty good. Still a little bit to improve, but could be worse. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident were you in your most recent English interview? Let me know in the comments. And I just want to talk about why you should listen to me in the first place. So my name is Kira. I am an English coach. I help tech professionals convey their identity, their value, and their skills in English every single day. And I truly love my job. I love language. I love talking about language. I love answering questions about language. And I also love technology and talking about that. So it's really my two favorite things combined in one. So If you're here today, you might be experiencing a couple of these problems. First, that you have the skills and the experience for the jobs that you're applying for. The problem is that all of that information is filtered through your ability to speak English. Because of that, you may not have access to all of the jobs or the positions that you are interested in. And because of this, your trajectory in your professional career is going to be stifled and limited. And we don't want that. We want unlimited potential, unlimited trajectory. Okay, so if you are studying English, you may have had experience with some more traditional methods in the past. The problem is that traditional language learning does not necessarily account for the way that humans learn language. As a research field, education is very young, and we tend to stick with what we know, whether or not it is useful or good. And language learning is a prime example of this. Um, so I want to talk about learning for just a second. Um, Learning is an emotional process. Because of that, there's going to be a lot of turmoil involved. There are going to be constant threats to your ego that are going to make you feel a little shaky, a little less confident, a little more anxious. Learning is also a cognitive process. It deals with how we are preparing our brain to succeed, how we're giving ourselves the best chance to succeed. And learning is also a social process. When you are communicating, really the goal is to understand others and to be understood by others. So if language is a social process, learning a language also needs to be a social process. So, first up, how do we find the friction that you're feeling in your communication? A couple of things that you can do are to produce the language, get it out there, speak, write, communicate with people, and try and notice where you're having trouble. So notice your problems whenever you're speaking. And then once you have noticed the types of things that you're struggling with, I find it very helpful to describe the things that you have noticed and talk about them a little bit more in depth. So, how do we do that? The first way that you can produce language to kind of arrive at those gaps is to just narrate your own life. I do this when I am practicing Spanish. Maybe I will be caring for my plants and talking aloud through that process. And as soon as I arrive at a point where I don't know what to say, I take a note. And so I have a Spanish book here that I have all of my friction written down in, and I have lots of plant related words here, lots of Harry Potter vocabulary, lots of tech vocabulary, and I find that very useful. Um, Also, in conversation, when you are in conversation with someone that you work with or someone that you're friends with, you're going to arrive at a point where you are negotiating with another person to figure out exactly what the goal of that interaction is. Um, and also, this I'll change this later. So just get into conversation with people. Find out what are the things that you are not able to say. Writing is also a great way to produce language. Once you arrive at that point where you can no longer get your words out, then you found the friction. You've arrived at the friction. After you have produced a language, you've gotten to the point where you understand what are the things that you're struggling with. I want you to notice those things, write them down, take notes on the things that you're struggling with. If this is difficult for you, maybe make a recording of yourself, listen back, record your interviews and review to see how you've done and what you would like to improve in the future. And again, when you're in conversation with other people, it's a fantastic way to get feedback on if your ideas are understood or if they are not understood. So use any avenue that you can to arrive at the friction in your language learning. After you have noticed everything, I find it very helpful to put your friction into a couple of different categories. Um, any successful communication in any language, your native language in English, is going to include two main ingredients. hard skills, which are the mechanical bits of language that you use to build thoughts and ideas, and the soft skills, the way that your words are interpreted, the way that other people see you, and the way that other people think of you, how empathetic you are, how culturally appropriate you are. All of those things are what I consider to be the soft skills of speaking a language. So, a question for you is, what are some hard skills that you would like to improve for your next interview? Let me know in the chat what you think. Okay, we have so many numbers. Okay, we have an 8.5. Very good, Thiago. That's so confident. We have a 3. Oh no, Hernan, we can work on that, definitely. Um, we have some middle of the road. We have 5, we have 6, we have 7. Okay, so in thinking about your most recent interview, what are some hard skills that you definitely struggled with? Did you struggle with plural issues? Did you struggle with verb conjugation? I know a lot of people feel very confident speaking in the present tense, but when they have to switch to the past tense, their confidence just shoots right down. Or maybe the future tense. Do you have issues with adverb phrases, with adjectives, things like that? So let me know, what are some of the hard skills that you need to improve for your next interview? Okay, after we have arrived at the friction, what do we do with it? So, to guide our learning, I like to encourage people to build a structure for the story that you are going to tell in English. And again, we can do this in a couple of different ways. The first way to build your narrative is to write it down. I know a lot of people like to practice and rehearse before interviews, and this is fantastic. I think you should definitely practice in a verbal sense. But a lot of people are kind of just going on the fly and saying, "Well, I'll figure it out when I'm in the interview, and I won't know what to say until the time comes." You don't have to do that. You can know what to say before the time comes. Interviews are very predictable in a sense, and especially if you are looking for that perfect job, you might not get, the first job that you interview for might not be perfect. So use any opportunity to get those interview questions, write them down, and prepare your answers in advance. In order to add detail to your story, I really encourage using question words to add some detail, to pad out whatever story you're telling. And finally, learn in blocks. I was going to use the word Legos, but I didn't want them to attack me for copyright infringement. So we're going to say blocks, but really I mean Legos. Okay, so how do we do this? The first thing about creating a structure is that there are going to be different structures for different tasks within an interview. If you are in a technical interview and you have to solve a problem in front of people in real time, there are a couple of language categories that you will need to do or to utilize within this section. You will absolutely need to clarify the question. Understanding the question that's being asked is the first step in solving it correctly. So I really encourage you to come up with some summarizing language, some paraphrasing language, so that you can restate the question to the interviewer to confirm, am I understanding this correctly? Did I get you correctly that first time? And then if you didn't, they have a chance to say, actually, what I meant was this. So get your clarifications ready. Next, when you are working through a problem, coding problem, whether it's written, it's maybe digital, maybe even a conversation to start, something you'll have to do is sequence your steps. So you need to explain your thought process in a way that makes sense to the listener. And it's very difficult to get past the basics of, first I will do this, then I will do this, then I will do this. Really what we want is to make sure that you are using diverse language, you're using varied language when you're sequencing, so it doesn't always sound the same. Finally, in a technical interview, you will need to troubleshoot. You will inevitably arrive at a problem and you will need to work through how you are going to solve that problem. So, technical interviews are going to be a little bit different than your behavioral interview. And in a behavioral interview, you're going to be telling a lot of little stories about yourself. And the way that you can shape these stories is by thinking of it in three parts. The first part is the problem. What was the issue? And how did you assess this problem? What research did you do to fix this problem? Who did you consult to fix this problem? And what was your solution that you came up with? How were you integral to the solving of this problem? Um, and how did you implement it? Finally, what did you learn from this process? What would you do differently if you could go back in time? What skill did you learn or improve by solving this problem? So when you are asked a behavioral question, they don't need every small detail of the problem. They really need these three things. What was wrong? How did you fix it? What did you learn? That's it. So when you're practicing, try to get it in those in these pillars, in these structures, and then you will be able to reference them in a much uh, quicker way when you are in the middle of an interview. So finally, I highly encourage you to learn language in blocks. Learning in words, individual words, is how a lot of people start with language learning. And the one difference that you might notice with people that are so good at English or any language really is that they can say sentences that are so much longer than you can, or they say things in a much more creative way than you can. And you think, I wish I could talk like that. So the difference between an advanced speaker and a not so advanced speaker is the way they string together their ideas. If you're in an interview, being asked a question is like being asked to build a house out of Legos. So let's imagine that you came to this interview with a bag full of 1,000 tiny little individual Legos, and they say, okay, build a house. You have 30 seconds. And you start building, and you're frantic and you're stressed, and you think, oh no, my house doesn't look like a house. It's taking so long. But what if you came into the interview with the walls already built, with the roof already built, with these larger pieces? So then instead of fitting together 1,000 pieces, you're fitting together 5 pieces, and then you have a house. As you progress in your English language study, you need to stop learning in individual words, instead learning groups of words that will make your building a house process much quicker and much easier. So the way that you can do this is to find examples of real language. I know that everyone here regularly uses some sort of media to learn, whether that's YouTube, whether that's courses, whether it's movies, or anything that you can use to learn. Find examples of real life people using English the way that you want to use it. And take notes. Write down those chunks, those blocks that you see, and you think, oh, I like the way they said that. I'm going to write that down and I'm going to use it. So write them down and make sure that you're using these blocks that you're collecting regularly so that you can internalize them into your mind. So then when the time comes, very easily accessible. Okay, so I want to know in the chat, where are some areas that you find blocks? I personally love YouTube. I think that anybody can learn anything if they go onto YouTube. Let's see. Okay, we have a couple of questions in the chat, and I will get to questions at the end. So where are some places that you find Legos or blocks to build language? I know some people like to watch coding interviews on YouTube. Some people like to watch tutorials on how to use certain software, how to do certain things, even how to interview correctly. You can watch mock interviews on YouTube or any platform and collect those blocks and keep them for yourself. Okay, so finally, when you get to the day of the interview, the problem here is really that you need to actually use these blocks in a way that doesn't make you seem too unprepared, too nervous, all of those things. So when you are showing up to your interview and you want to make sure that you're calm, you're confident, you're ready to express yourself, there are a couple of things that you need to do in order to make that happen. The first is that you need to make your brain as comfortable as possible. Next, you need to prepare the day of the interview, warm up before the interview. I always say that if you have a big task to do in English, that task should never be the first time you speak English in a day. Your brain needs time to transition. And so give yourself that warm up time. And then once the interview is over, immediately reflect on it, take some notes. So, in order to make your brain cozy, a couple of things that you can do is to, well, first of all, start well in advance. Start way earlier than you think that you need to, because when we are speaking in a second language, we feel like we are constantly under attack. We're nervous, we're embarrassed, we're maybe frustrated with ourselves that we can't express with as much detail as we can in our own language. I always think of the clip from Modern Family where Gloria says, "Do you have any idea how smart I am?" in Spanish. So we want you to be able to express the full depth of your ability in English. And what that's going to take is telling your ego to be quiet. Whenever you feel that frustration with yourself, that is your ego. Whenever you feel embarrassed or ashamed, that is your ego trying to sabotage you. Just tell it to shut up and move on. Also, before the interview, get into the mindset of what the interview will be about. This is not an English test. This is a conversation to find out if you are a good fit for a company. So use the time before the interview, maybe when you're warming up, to get into the mindset of who is this company? Who are the people I want to be working with? What can I offer? What value can I add to their team? And then also, your brain is a physical part of you, and there are things physically that you can do to prepare yourself. So I know I sound like a mother here, but make sure you eat a good breakfast, make sure you get a good night's sleep, and make sure you're drinking plenty of water, because if you are dehydrated, you are just reducing your cognitive processing times drastically. So you want to give yourself the best chance to succeed, and you can do that in a physical sense and not just a mental and emotional sense. When you're warming up, give your brain time to switch from your native language into English. Whenever I have a Spanish class, the first 15 minutes of that class are total garbage. I need at least 15 minutes, sometimes 30, for my brain to catch up with the big change that I've just made. So give yourself time. You don't want that 15 minutes of garbage English to happen during your interview. You want to have it happen before. Make this a habit. Do this before every single interview. Make it a routine that you do. When you are warming up, don't just reach for the passive forms of language. Don't just listen to something. Don't just read something. Produce. You want to have input with English, and you want to be creating. So we want to negotiate so that our brains can warm up our negotiating muscles and get in the zone for communicating with native speakers. After your interview, I highly recommend reflecting. I know that a lot of you do retrospectives at work and talk about what went well in a sprint, what didn't go so well, what you could change for next time. When you are reflecting on your English language performance, go back to noticing and naming. Every time that you speak, you're going to find some new friction. So make sure that you write that down, categorize it. Is this a hard skill that I need to improve? Is this a soft skill that I need to improve? And then take action. Interviewing is sometimes a marathon, and you could get the job of your dreams after one interview, or it could take you 25 interviews. The key here is to stay consistent, take action when you need to, and make those incremental improvements. So let me know in the chat, how do you think that retrospectives can help you in your... Ah, Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we have a question about sharing the slides. I will be sharing this entire presentation after it is finished. I'll be tweaking it a little bit and I will be sharing the recording this afternoon. So stay tuned for that. So how do retrospectives or how can they help you in your language learning journey, in your interview process? And I truly think that retrospectives are not only beneficial for the language aspect. I think they're beneficial for every aspect of interviews. Interviews are very high stakes. They're very stressful. And if you get into the habit of reflecting after each one, maybe they won't seem as stressful anymore. So finally, um, whatever you're doing to improve your English before an interview, make sure that it is active. You won't become the confident, cool, and calm speaker of English that you want by doing nothing. You have to do something. So use your voice so that you can become more confident in using it. Um, some of you, I do have some of my students here today in the webinar, but I do offer this as a service. I do help people do this every single day. I do offer interview preparation. I help non-native English speakers build their story, build their narrative, and practice communicating that narrative before interviews. I typically do this on a one-to-one process or a one-to-one basis. So I do offer sprints to help people improve their language learning. Um, and this is kind of the typical way that I've done it. I do, 5 sessions via Zoom. We have feedback, we have homework, we do interview practice. But I'm so excited to be sharing with you today that starting in November, I will be offering my Interview Ready English Sprint as a group program. So I'm going to be starting a group cohort program on November 21st for anyone who is interested in working on building their narrative together. It will be starting on November 21st on a beta basis. So I will be doing just a couple of test cohorts to see how it goes, to see what is beneficial, what I can tweak, what I can improve. This program will include some practical assignments that you can do to kind of build your story, to build your narrative. We will also have kind of hot seat interview practice during our group sessions. And additionally, you will be practicing with each other. We will have partner practice sessions throughout each week as well. If you are interested in this, let me know. I'll be sending out a link after this webinar as well. And finally, I want to know what questions you have for me. Well, are you interview ready? So that is all that I have for you today. Thank you so, so much for joining. And I'm going to stick around for at least the next like 20 minutes for people that have questions, people that have comments. And I'm going to get started with some of the questions that I've heard before. Let's see. Okay, yes, definitely helpful to record interviews. And like I said, this is not only helpful for the English aspect of it, it's helpful for every aspect of it. I know that when you are preparing for an interview, you're on YouTube watching people work through coding problems. You're on YouTube watching people answer behavioral questions. And so there is a benefit in watching yourself do those exact things as well. Okay, any other questions in the chat? Feel free to add those. I'll be sticking around for just a little bit to help answer those. And as I said before, I will be sharing this recording later today. So if you were not able to attend, no worries. Or if you had to leave early, no worries. I will be sharing this with my LinkedIn page. Okay, any questions? Any questions? I'm so excited. There are people here from all over the world. Okay, a question I have is what is the weather like for you today? For me, it's very it's not sunny, it's not cloudy, kind of in between, and it's kind of the perfect fall day. So let me know in the chat what questions you have, and additionally, what is one thing I want to know? What is one thing that you are taking away from this webinar? What is one thing that you will leave today and utilize in your own life? Something you will implement in your English study? Hot as usual. Do the steps you mentioned also apply for improvised question? That is a wonderful question, Maria. Um, I would say yes. Cloudy, yeah. Wonderful. Okay. So, in terms of improvised questions, um, the reason I think that this sort of, let me just go back to the structure question. The reason I think that this structure is so helpful is because what it does is it creates a blueprint in your mind that you will be able to reference incredibly easily. So, if you get a question that you weren't expecting, um, you might feel frozen, like, "Oh no, what do I say?" But if you have gotten into the habit of thinking of it in 3 parts, what's the problem? What was your solution? And what did you learn from it? It's going to be so much easier to start answering right away instead of thinking, "Wait a second, I didn't prepare for this. What do I say?" Um, okay, great question, Maria. Okay, so we have cloudy and then Erin, where is it? Let me see. Okay, it's cold here in Mar del Plata, Argentina. It should be warm, but it's not. That's kind of how I feel today. It should be cold, but it's not. I'm nervous. Global warming strikes again. Okay, any other questions? Is it better to say less but more confidently than taking the risk of speaking more? Yes, absolutely. That is a fantastic question. I know that some people, when they get nervous, want to, it's like they turn on the faucet and the words just keep coming, keep coming. Um, but if you're not saying much of substance, it really can hurt your image and how you're coming off to the interviewers. They will definitely see you as nervous. They will see you as maybe a little bit panicky and unprepared because you're trying to fill the space rather than think a little bit. And I've talked to a few people that are on the other side of this and conduct interviews regularly, and they have said that when an interviewer is nervous and talks and talks and talks, it shows that they're nervous. And so, what is so much better from the perspective of the interviewer is to take a moment and pause and say, let me think about that. Take some time to think. I know it's stressful to think when there are people watching you and waiting, like, what's your answer? But calm yourself in the moment. Take a moment to realize they don't they're not grading your English here. What they want to know is the answer to the question. So take a moment to gather your thoughts before just spewing as much as possible. Um, okay, next question. Are there any tips on how to practice Q&A to not be afraid during an interview? This is the type of thing that I truly think that you can only learn by uh, doing. Okay. It's the type of thing that I feel like it's when we think about language learning, a lot of people see it as this bucket that you need to fill with things, and then once your bucket is full, you know English and you're done. That is not at all how language works. Instead, it's like a muscle that you need to exercise every single day. So let's say that you don't train your muscles very often, but you watch a lot of videos on how to train, and you think, oh, I've seen other people do this, so I think I can do it. And then you go into maybe a gym and you go for the biggest weight that you can find and say, well, I've watched all the videos, so I know how to do it. And you pick it up and you just fall straight to the ground. If you want to be able to answer questions on the fly, to answer things that are unexpected, what you need to do is get into the habit of negotiating with other English speakers. It can be native speakers, it can be non native speakers. And this is exactly something that I will be doing in the group cohort program. I know that I talk to a lot of people that struggle with getting authentic practice. Um, they think, well, I study English all the time and I watch Netflix and I listen to podcasts and I watch YouTube videos, but it comes time to talk and I just freeze up. I feel frozen and I don't know what to say. It's because your muscles aren't warmed up. You're not training consistently. So this is kind of the reason I created this program, was to give people a chance to practice consistently, to practice with a native speaker to get that kind of feedback, to um, get the friction pointed out that maybe you're missing, and then also to practice with each other. For people who are interviewing in international positions, it's pretty likely that you'll maybe be speaking to some native speakers, but you'll also be speaking to non-native speakers. And so I think that getting the practice of tuning your ear to other people's accents, to their vocabulary, can be very helpful. Um, okay, great question. Thank you so much. How do you answer, "Tell me about yourself"? Oh, this question makes everyone so nervous, because it's like, well, how do I express that I'm wonderful and amazing and so talented without sounding arrogant or cocky, or like, what information do they want to hear? Um, Sometimes people will start from the very beginning. I'm from this place, and these are my hobbies, and this is my job. Um, when interviewers are asking this question, unfortunately, they don't really care about you very much. What they care about is who you can be for their company. So when you're answering the question, "Tell me about yourself," you can filter out the things that are not necessarily relevant to the company itself, and try to highlight the things that would be a benefit to them. So I would say, give an overview of your general goal as a professional. What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? Who do you want to do it with? And why do you want to do it? And then hopefully they will recognize that, oh, that's the type of attitude we want to have in our company, or that's the type of motivated goal setter I want to have working on my team. So when you're talking about yourself, you really want to create sort of a professional avatar that they can see bringing on to their team, bringing into their company. And if you have written any cover letters in the past, you know that writing cover letters is something that you need to tailor to each job that you interview for. I think this question, "Tell me about yourself," is exactly the same. Do some research on the company that you're interviewing with, and you will see these things align with some experiences that I had. And for this company, maybe some different experiences that I've had are more important to highlight. So definitely phrase your answer based on what do they want or need from me. Wonderful question. Okay, any other questions that you have about English in general? Any questions about interviews? I wanted to talk a little bit about uh, the hard skills that people said maybe they struggle with. Word order is a big struggle, specifically for Spanish speakers, for Portuguese speakers, because we just have a different structure for how we phrase things. And so I think that looking into the foundations of English as a language, and then comparing that foundation with the foundation of your language, can help you to understand the concepts that are different. I think that it's so common for people to think of an idea in their native language and then translate it to English, and for some reason it just doesn't sound all that great. Um, but instead of translating from your native language into English, we should be creating the structure based on the structure of the target language. I think that your native language can be a very useful resource here. Because it can inform you about what the differences are. Years ago, I was teaching writing. I was teaching a writing class in Ecuador, and I learned so much about Spanish word forms, or Spanish structure, prepositions, nouns, like the way that people order their words and sentences. I learned so much about Spanish word order from reading English essays that Spanish speakers had written. So instead of saying my brother's house in English, they would say the house of my brother. And it's such a small difference, but it's kind of like a built-in template that people in Spanish are accustomed to using. So then when you're moving over to English, we have different templates. So learn what those templates are. You might not be the language nerd that I am, and you might not want to buy a syntax textbook. But I do think it's very useful to look into the structure of your language and the structure of English and compare. How are they the same? How are they different? Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you so much for being so participative in the chat. I really enjoyed your questions, your comments. Um, any other problems that you face? And okay, what about when you get wordless and go blank? Oh my God. It's the worst feeling, isn't it? It's just like, oh no. Ah. So I think that this is the type of thing that needs to be planned for ahead of time. When you are negotiating your salary, great question, and I'll get to that one next. When you are faced with an unexpected question, as I've said before, having these designated structures that you're plugging your answers into can be very helpful. But I think that instead of, well, maybe not instead of, in addition to coming up with a strategy for when you don't know and you don't know what to say, my advice is to anticipate any questions that you have. So when you're rehearsing for an interview, you're preparing, put yourself in the mindset of the interviewer and think, what is something I would want to know about this interviewee? What is a question I would have about this story that she told? Or what is a question I would have about this point on her resume? And look at your own resume, your own CV, and your professional profile and think, what are some things I would want to know about this person? And try and anticipate all of those questions beforehand, put them down in writing, and come up with some answers. And again, practicing with people, with your peers, with if you take a course, if you have a teacher, anything like that. Getting prepared in an authentic sense, like negotiating in the moment about meaning, about definitions, about questions. Those are the things that will get you ready to do it in the moment without freezing or pausing for a very long time. Okay, Wilson has a question. How can I prepare to negotiate my salary? Here's the problem with negotiating your salary. Conversations about money are so cultural. In some places, it's maybe completely fine to ask directly about how much money you'll be making and say very directly that that's not enough. And in other cultures, it might be a little bit impolite to talk about the numbers up front or to be very forthcoming about what you want. I would say that researching the company itself and going in with an understanding of the salary range before you go into the interview can be very helpful. And when you are negotiating something so sensitive as money, I do think that this is where let's see, the hard skills and the soft skills of language kind of come in handy. So if you are talking about money, some of the soft skills are that you cannot be too direct. And again, I don't want to say always, I don't want to say every company is different, every boss is different, every hiring manager is different, every HR office is different. So it's difficult to give, this is the advice that you should take, and this is exactly how you should negotiate your your salary in an interview. There is there's a person that I've worked with a little bit before. His name is Ian, and he does a podcast on interviewing, and he is a person who has interviewed for over 20 years. He has been completing tech interviews and hiring people onto different teams. So I am going to find his podcast. I'm going to share it in the chat because I think he had a recent episode about negotiating salary. And I highly, highly recommend that you listen to his podcast. I think he gives so many great tips. And okay, here we go. I'm going to stick this in the chat below. Let's see. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, so it's called Tech Interview Guide, and I would check out some of his live streams related to interview questions. So people will ask him questions and he will answer them in his live stream. He does streaming on Twitch and then also puts his videos on YouTube as well. So highly, highly recommend checking out his stuff. Okay, any other questions before we get going? We have about a minute left. And again, thank you all so much for coming. Just like you might feel nervous before an interview, I was feeling nervous today. I was thinking, what if I forget all of the things I'm going to say? Or what if they think I'm crazy or stupid? And then I started and I realized, oh yeah, it's just people. So when you're going into an interview and feeling nervous and terrified and tense, just remember that anyone interviewing you is just a person, and they're not judging you, judging your character. They're not like, okay, let's see. Could you give me some tips on how to stay confident, even if you notice that you are making a mistake during a talk on the interview? Okay. So earlier I talked about getting into the mindset of like what you need to do in an interview. And let's see. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, hold on. Okay, so when you are in the moment and you're delivering, part of the thing that can trip you up is by getting in your head and thinking about your mistakes and allowing them to change your demeanor or the way that you're performing. The most successful speakers in their native language, in their second language, anything, are people that are focused on the task. They're not focused on their performance in the moment. They are focused on the task. You can focus on your performance after, focus on your performance before. In the moment, be completely present. Think about how you can best answer their question, how you can best meet their needs as a company. And I don't like to think of people as products, but I really do think that when you're interviewing, it's kind of like this company's on the market, right? And they need something, and you are that something that they need. So try to keep that being something they need at the front of your mind. And you can criticize yourself after the interview. I would say if you get into the habit of this like mindset shift directly before an interview, you can save it. Recognize in the moment that you had a mistake and then turn it off and say, I'm going to save that for the reflection time after the interview. And maybe it'll be in 30 minutes, maybe it'll be in an hour, and say, I'm just going to turn this off and turn it back on in an hour, turn it back on after the interview is over. And then you can think through and reflect. I think that good recovery from mistakes is something that a lot of performers have to deal with, maybe on stage or athletes in a match or something. Just remember that there is a game to play. There's a task to complete, and then turn off your inner criticism. Turn it back on after the interview has finished, after they've ended the Zoom meeting, and you breathe a sigh of relief and think, "Huh, now I can criticize myself for all of the things I said incorrectly." Okay, thank you so much, Adnan, for giving me such a beautiful compliment. I love teaching so much. Any other questions in the chat that we have about English, about interviews, about studying, about speaking, anything at all? These have been really great questions. Oh, that's another thing. When you are interviewing, making sure that you are prepared with questions to ask the interviewer it's completely vital. I see lots of posts floating around on LinkedIn about like, oh, here are some great questions you can ask. Find some before the interview, and also research the company and find questions that you are truly curious about. You don't need to have this like constructed professional image type of question. Make them honest questions that you want to know, like, what's your vacation policy like? Because there's this conference that I go to every year, and I want to make sure that I can attend it regularly. Or what's your work life balance like? Because I just had a new baby, and I want to make sure that I'm very present in my family life. So make sure that your questions are relevant to what you actually want to know and not just a performative question. And the hard skills of asking those questions will be the word order of question forms. So make sure that you're studying up on how we arrange questions in English so that you're asking those in the right way. Okay, thank you all so much for coming. If there are no more questions, I am going to bid you adieu. Have a wonderful day. And if you think of any more questions after, send me a message. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I will add my profile here if you want to follow me. I post a lot about English. I truly love English. And okay, let's see. Going to post it here. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, feel free to connect with me. Oh, thank you so much, Alex. You are so sweet. Yes, I hope to inspire others with these workshops. And also, if you have any questions that you would like me to answer in a future workshop, let me know. I am actually in touch with the guy who does the tech interview guide. His name is Ian. We actually are hoping to do like a Q&A session together, where I just ask him lots of questions from his perspective as an interviewer. So stay tuned. That will probably be the next live event that I do, will be a Q&A session with someone who has been interviewing in the tech industry for over 20 years and has asked and heard an answer to every possible question you can think of. And I think that he's definitely a wealth of knowledge for you to take advantage of. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and feel free to send me a message if you have any questions, any thoughts, any comments, and I will see you next time. Until then.